Hello, everyone. I'm Javier Aguado, Global Cloud Director at myCloudDoor. And today we are going to talk about how we can optimize our Azure cloud spending. So first of all, we are going to cover a quick introduction on the problem and the challenges that customers are facing when working with the cloud. Second, we are going to help to understand how the cloud spending works, what are the different concepts and how the budgets can be calculated. And after that, we are going to review the top 10 actions to optimize Azure cost. And we'll see how we are able to apply those steps for CR reduction in our Azure bill. Before going into the details, I just want to make a quick introduction about myCloudDoor, our company. We provide IT consulting services and professional services to help our customers through the whole cloud journey. We help them through the different phases: discovery, where we apply cloud consulting services; cybersecurity for protect cloud and on-premises workloads; transformation phase, where we help our customers to migrate or implement new applications and platforms in the cloud; optimization phase, where we provide managed cloud services, operation services, and our FinOps services. Today, we are going to focus on this area to see how we are able to optimize the cost while we are maintaining the performance and the availability requirements. Innovation phase, where we do our cloud analytics projects, artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. And at last, then power phase, where we provide users new toolings, applications based on low code or automation and RPA. So what happened with the cloud and why sometimes the cost and the billing path is a challenge? So when we are seeing any company going to the cloud, we see two main objectives. The first one are financial benefits. So people want to go to the cloud because they are expecting to reduce the cost, rationalize IT cost spending. People want to go because they want to reduce the cost. They want to simplify their operations and also avoiding complex IT capacity planning processes. At the same time, they want to improve their business strategy to get immediate access to IT resources for implementing new systems, platform applications. They want to reduce the time to value or the time to market for new applications, new products, new implementations. At the end, what they want is to improve the enterprise agility. On top of that, increase the security, optimize operations, etc. So that's why companies usually want to go to the cloud and how they justify the business case. But what we are finding is a lot of companies that they are implementing and going into the cloud, they are not really getting all those benefits, especially the financial one. Why that this is happening? Mainly because managing the cost in the cloud has several challenges. First of all, it's extremely difficult to understand and to control and allocate the cost because you have a lot of concepts, a lot of different resources. Maybe you are working in a multi-cloud environment and you are getting billed by storage, networking, computing, security. You have some shared resources which are difficult to control and to allocate. You need to the cost for operations. So at the end, it's so many concepts in an unknown world. And we need to find how we are able to decrypt those costs, understand them, and then how we are able to tackle them and to optimize them. In fact, if you see an example on some invoices from Azure that any of you may be receiving every month, you can see a consolidated or aggregated model where you are going to see the cost by type of resource, which is not going to provide you really business value on that because you may see that you are spending this much on storage in this region. But okay, this is okay. But how you can understand what are the business concepts behind those technical concepts? And so it's difficult to allocate those costs. And then how you are able to understand how you are able to optimize it. At the same time, on the other way, you can see the disaggregated or the detailed invoices, where you can have millions or hundreds of thousands of rows with all the specific concepts and costs per second, per resource, per region. so much information. So you get these enormous Excels with so many files, with so many rows, with all the data. And also it's difficult to work with those and to understand those. That's why when we are working with any company or with any customer, we propose to implement a FinOps framework. So FinOps, what is FinOps? You may have seen several articles or papers all over the last years regarding that. Is the methodology for having a financial management discipline and cultural practice inside the company. So when implementing FinOps, at the end, this practice or this discipline, what at the end it does, it enables organization to get the maximum business value. So try to optimize everything, collaborating with different teams. So you usually have engineering, IT, finance, purchasing department, business teams to have or to take decisions based on data. So at the end, this FinOps, which means financial operations, gives you all the data on how you are using the cloud, how you are able to optimize it, to take decisions on that and get the maximum business value. For us, the main best practices or the main pillars for FinOps are these four. First of all, cloud knowledge. So it's important to understand how the cloud works, the different billing models, the different metrics, what are the parameters for calculating the consumption. So, and also different licensing models. So if you know that, you are able to take decisions in the next steps. Second, this is a continuous optimization cycle. So it's not something that you adjust once, but you need to do it in an incremental way in a periodic mode. So when we are going to see these 10 top actions you can take into your environment for reducing the Azure bill, you need to take into consideration that this is not something that you are going to do once and that's it. So you need to apply all those optimizations, but then every month, every 2 weeks, you need to review your resources and look for further optimizations in your environment. And here we need to, when we are talking about optimizations, we need also to consider what we are consuming and also the different licensing models. So for doing all that and for not just doing the optimization, but also doing the different finance process like cost allocation, budgeting, predictions, etc., we always recommend to have a cost management solution to reduce the amount of manual effort that is required for managing big cloud environments. And at last, but not less important, is we cannot consider FinOps as an isolated thing. It should be embedded within your cloud governance model. At the end, there are a lot of things of the cloud governance that directly impacts the cost, the optimization, and the FinOps processes, such as the reference architecture, even the naming convention, how you are going to provide accountability, etc. But how the cloud cost works? Because at the end, you know that you need to pay per use. Each resources have different type of billing methods. But if we want to make a quick summary about how the cloud cost works, I think we can identify these 5 variables. So first of all, you are billed based on the type of resource. So it's type of resource. If it's a virtual machine, if it's a OpenAI API, if it's a database, different types of resources will have different types of billing. Then for sure, it's really important the size of the resource. So as bigger is the resource, the bigger will be the cost of it. We need to know that we pay per use. So most of the resources are being paid by the capacity, like for example, storage will be per gigabyte of storage. The compute part you will be paid for the seconds that the compute resource is working. So at the end, you are paying only for what you are using. The location, so different locations, different data centers will have different costs. So Azure has more than 60 regions worldwide. Some regions like Singapore, Southeast Asia, or Brazil So they are like 50–70% more expensive than other regions such as North Europe or UI North or East US. So there are some of them that are less expensive. They are bigger, they have more resources, and Microsoft has more competitive prices. But there are other of them because of the size of them. Maybe they are more old, or because of taxes of the country, they are more expensive. And at last, the licensing model, because here you need to take into consideration that you can pay per use, or you can get a reservation or a saving plan or a commitment. You change the licensing model for those resources, and also you can change the cost of them. So at the end, if we want to make like two groups about how the cost works, and then we are going to see how we are able to optimize each of those parts, we can consider what we are consuming. So the type of resources, the size, the licensing, etc., and then how we are doing. So the location, the licensing model, and we are going to play with those two big parts, the what and the how. So going into what is really interesting for most of you, how we are able to optimize our Azure cost spending with these top 10 actions that is going to at least help you to optimize 85–90% of your possible optimizations that you may have, or your potential optimizations that you may have in your environment. For sure, there are additional things more advanced that we can work with some specific optimizing tooling. But with these top 10 actions, you are going to get 80–90% of your savings. And most of them, they are extremely easy to implement. You just need to take time to review and to take decisions. So on the what, so on the resources we are consuming, we are going to see options in unused resources, right sizing, snoozing, resource consolidation, replication policies, the new resources or the new families that the provider is launching, and also the CPU constraint, which are a specific type of resources, as we are going to see it later. On the how part, we are going to check the licensing, the reservations, and the savings plan. These both reservation and saving plan, they are really important. Both of them place with a commitment 1 or 3 years with the provider, but here you are able to get extremely high discounts, even up to 70% on your computing resource, which is really, really interesting. So let's go to see each of them and see how we can implement it. So the first one, extremely simple, is unused resource. So the most expensive thing is the one that you are not using. So you need to stop paying for what you are not using. So first of all, you should stop or deallocate any not required environment, remove any kind of testing environment or POCs. We are seeing that in so many customers. It doesn't matter the size or the country of the customer. They are starting new projects, new initiatives, new laboratories, but they are not removing that. For that, we always recommend to have a tagging policy, so you can easily identify the owner of each of the resource. So you can check with them if they are if they require those environments or not. People tends to forget that they have created this demo environment for something, and you are paying for that every day. And the same with some what we call orphan resources. So resources that in the past were attached to like a VM or other environment. You may have a virtual machine with an IP, with some disks, with some backups, and then they remove the VM, but they forget to remove all the surrounding resources. So those resources get lonely over there in your account. They may not be a lot of money, but at the end you are starting to add so many US dollars paying per month for something that you are not using. So it's really important to have some policies to run some scripts all over your environment and detect these unused resources, so you are able to delete that. And you need to think that in the cloud, every dollar counts, because if you are able to save $1, then you are not saving just today. You are saving all over the days that you are working with the cloud. Second, the right sizing and the snoozing. So I'm going to use a specific example so you can see it in this slide, which is going to be very easy to understand for you. So imagine that you have here a virtual machine, and here I'm seeing the CPU average utilization per hour in a regular day. So you are seeing that from up to 100% of performance you can use, you are never reaching up to 25–30%. So imagine this VM is what is called the D14V2. It's an SKU of Microsoft, and it costs around 1,000 euros per month. First of all, what can I do? Reduce the size. Let's reduce the size, go for a D12, which costs only 237 euros per month. So I'm able to save 700 euros per month just reducing the size of the resource. So I ensure that I'm not going to reach the peak, but I'm able to reduce the cost significantly. So this is right sizing. At the end, you need to be able to implement proper monitoring that shows you the real usage of your resources. So as soon as these resources have been working a few days, a few weeks, you are able to right size, to reduce the size for each of the resources to reduce significantly the amount of money you are paying. And then we have the snoozing. The snoozing is mainly for non-production systems or for systems that are only being used for sometimes some hours per day. If you see this VM for a lot of time, you have idle time, nobody's using it, only from 6 a.m. till 9–10 p.m., right? So what you are able is to shut down this VM for those hours. So if you only are using this VM for 300 hours per month, you are able to shut down all this size. So at the end, you will be only paying less than 100 euros per month. So at the end, it's 90% savings, just adjusting the size and shutting down the VMs on not use times. This seems pretty easy to calculate, but we need to take into consideration that, first of all, proper monitoring tool, not just the ones that the provider is giving us. So we are able really to see the performance on CPU, on IOPS, on memory, to calculate the size that I need. And second, trying to implement in the company the culture or shutting down any non-production environment that is not being used. You may require some automation for letting anyone to request or to access those resources at night if required because you have a project or you may have a problem and you need to test something. But by default, those resources should be shut down. Then something which is very important and you need to calculate is the storage replication policies. It affects both backup, which is very sensitive and the cost can be extremely important. And second, also for disks or some databases and some storage. So at the end, in Azure, you may have different backup policies, what is called the your replication storage. You have the zonal replication storage or the local replication storage. Seeing an example of a VM with 500 gigabytes and the backup and the cost of the backup, you may see discounts up to 50% when comparing geo replication with local replication. So here I have two comments. First of all is you need to be careful because by default, Microsoft create the backup vaults with geo replication with the most expensive policy. So when creating any backup vault, depending on the workload and your business requirement, you should change that at the beginning of the deployment. And then try to create different backup policies based on business requirements. Even in the same production environment, you may not require the same policy for all the applications. So at the end, if you are able to define granular replication policies, you will be able to specifically create the different replication policies per resource, so you are able to optimize the cost in the storage. Another thing is the resource consolidation. So sometimes in the cloud, we are able to share some components between different environments. A very good example is what is called the hub and spoke architecture. And this is the common architecture that the best practices suggest to us. At the end, we are going to have a hub VNet or a hub subscription where we are going to have all the common components: security, monitoring, identity, administration, networking, etc. And then different spokes for applications. So if we are using this central services layer, we are able to share this cost among all the different applications I have. So it's important to have this in mind when defining any architecture. So I'm able to share some cost between the different departments or between the different entities I have in the company. And second, consolidating computing resources. So when working in traditional environments, there were more flexibility in terms of the size of the VMs. So you were able, for a computing resource, to add one additional virtual CPU or one additional gigabyte of RAM. In the cloud, you cannot, because you have like t-shirt sizes, so some sizes on the VMs. You have a lot, but you don't have all the flexibility. So for that, sometimes when going into very small applications, we may see that these small servers, or the smallest ones, may have at least a couple of virtual CPUs, like 8 gigabytes of RAM. So for very small applications, these applications won't have a lot of usage. So that's why we recommend to consider having several small workloads in the same VM or in the same database, so you are able to share the cost and take advantage of the capacity you are not using. Another example is new resources. So new is always, or at least usually, better. So Microsoft, like the other cloud providers, they are launching new versions of the products they have. Mainly because they are getting new hardware with new chips for new families. And most of the times, these new versions are at least the same cost, if not lower, than the previous one. And we can see an example of the D-series VMs, which are very common. So when you see for the same size of VM, which is 2 virtual CPU and 7-8 gigabytes of RAM, going a pay-as-you-go mode, when you started with the first VM, with the first series, it was $112 per month. But then the new ones, the V5, they are around $81, so 27% discount. So it's important to always try to deploy the newest available version, and then in a periodic base, review your whole infrastructure and renew the deployments you have for the newest ones. And it's not that you are just going to get a better price, but also better performance, because they have new generations of chips, and they have a better performance. Same happens with, for example, app services, and there are much other examples around the cloud. So it's important that you are up to date and reviewing what are the new families, so you are able to change and re-implement based on those new families to get better performance with lower cost. And for some specific workloads, and this is something that a lot of companies, they are not considering, is the CPU constraint. So mainly when working with databases or software that is built or quote based on the number of CPU cores you have available, you need to know that we have the use constraint CPU VMs. These VMs, what it has is a constraint on the usage on the CPU. So for example, if we have the E64DS V5, it's a VM with 64 cores, half terabyte of RAM, okay? But they have the constraint editions where it's exactly the same, but it can be constrained to 16 CPUs. So in terms of memory, the VM is the same in terms of IOPS. All the things are the same, but it's just that you are just limited the use of CPUs for 16 instead of 64. So when you are applying a database like a SQL Server Enterprise license on top of that, which is licensed based on the number of cores or even the operating system, the cost will go down significantly as we are limiting that. So sometimes this can be applied in some scenarios where I have huge requirements of memory, but low requirements on the compute part. And it's something that usually customers don't consider, but we should know that this kind of solutions exist, and that can help us to reduce the billing cost for those additional licenses greatly. Going into so we haven't seen the what, let's go into the how. So how we are able to optimize based on the consumption models. So first of all, we have the licensing. So we need to know that mainly operating system or databases. So instead of having the billing through the Azure Marketplace, we can either acquire them directly to Microsoft through CSP or other contract models, or we can rely on Azure Hybrid Benefit. Azure Hybrid Benefit means that I'm able to reuse existing Windows Server or SQL Server license, always if they are covered under software assurance. So that can reduce the cost of a computing resource up to 49%. And the same can apply for SUSE or Red Hat licenses. So you are able to acquire directly to the provider instead of paying that for a minute. And the savings can be considerable, but there is a counterpart here, is that you need to pay that in advance to the licensing provider instead of the pay-as-you-go mode. So there are some financial decisions that should be taken into consideration, but it's something that is worth to evaluate to get discounts on the licensing part. Then reservations, which for me it's one of the greatest things that the cloud has when talking about cost optimizing. We need to understand that a reservation is a 1 or 3 year commitment. So the longer the commitment, the lower the price. How it works? So I need to acquire a commitment on a specific resource. So imagine I decide that for this VM model in this region, I'm going to commit for 3 years. I will get a very high discount, up to 72%. So it's extremely big. And the good thing here is that I can decide if I want an upfront payment or a monthly payment. So the good thing is that if I'm using the monthly payment, I will be paid the same every month, but I will reduce a lot my invoice. And this is available for virtual machines, for some licenses like SUSE Linux, for SAP, for blob storage, for databases, for signups, for web apps. So many resources are available to be licensed through reservations or through reserve instances. Another important thing is that they have prioritized compute capacity. So this means that for extremely critical workloads that I know I'm going to have, if I get a reservation, Microsoft will guarantee that I will have priority to deploy those resources if there is any kind of shortage of resources in this data center. It's very uncommon that Microsoft has these kind of things, but for extremely big VMs like M series, if you get the reservation, you are going to Microsoft is going to guarantee that you are going to be able to deploy that even if they don't have capacity. And then at last, the reservations, they have some flexibility to cancel or to exchange. Okay. There are some conditions for that because even Microsoft has launched a new reservation policy that will start at the end of June this year. But we need to consider that the change right now is not limited, but we'll have some limitations for only one exchange starting the end of June of this year. And then you are able to cancel the reservations up to $50,000 per year. So if you have a reservation that the value of the reservation is 20,000, you are able to cancel that. But during one year, you are able to cancel up to 50,000 committed quantity. So there are some limitations on that. That would so seeing all the flexibility, reservations, etc. If you are interested on have further details, we have some specific courses just to understand this because it has some additional considerations you should have. And then we have the savings plan, which is similar but not specifically the same. So the savings plan, instead of reservation, what you do is commit on one specific resource. With savings plan, what you are is committing for a global spending all over your environment. It doesn't matter the type of resources, or as long as they are covered under a savings plan, and it doesn't matter the geography. So here, what you do is you commit on a fixed spend for between 1 or 3 years, same than reservations, and you are going to get lower price that if you are comparing with the pay-as-you-go. Here, the prices, the savings will go up to 65%. And this is how it works. So at the end, if I commit for a hourly commitment, any hour that I'm same or below, I'm going to be covered. But if I have additional resources, the delta will be covered under pay-as-you-go. This solution automatically optimizes the savings all over my subscriptions, all over my environments. And I'm able also to decide if I want to go in a monthly or in an upfront payment mode. So let's see a comparison between both things because they are similar, but there are some specific differences. So as we've seen before, a savings plan, savings up to 65%. Reservations, savings up to 72%. The commitment for savings plan is fixed hourly commitment all over my compute services. Reservations is what I do is I reserve a specific SKU in a specific region. Okay. So the savings here apply for all the services that are available for savings plan. Reservations, it goes directly into the specific resource. What resources are covered by savings plan? So mainly only computing resources right now. VMs, containers, Kubernetes, functions, sub-services, so only compute. Reservations can be applied for computing, but also they have licenses, storage, data analytics environments. So there are more resources that can be covered via reservations. The term is exactly the same, 1 or 3 years, payment options the same. And then regarding cancellations, there is no cancellation on savings plan, but on reservations, I can cancel up to $50,000 per year. Okay. And at last, and this is important, when estimating the savings, you are getting a discount with savings plan based on the pay-as-you-go model at that point of time. So if Microsoft change the price or the policy or the billing policy, the savings will not exactly be the same. In reservations, when you commit into a reservation, over the whole period of the reservation, the price is going to be fixed. So it doesn't matter if Microsoft changes the price, you are going to have exactly the same price every month. So it's something that it's also important to consider. So I think what is our recommendation here? I think we have been seeing so many things to do. Some of them, they are easy to implement, maybe like the savings plan or removing unused resources. Another of them may require further analysis like changing the size or consolidating some resources. Our recommendation is that you implement a continuous improvement cycle that will iterative help you to optimize your consumption. First of all, you need to understand what are your cloud costs, how much are you using these resources, who is using them, so you fully understand what you have. Then you need to see what actions you can take. At the end, you've seen 10 examples. This is the most important, but there are a few of them additional that you can implement. So you need to consider what actions you can implement and who should implement those. And after that, you should do that. You should implement those actions and measure the effectiveness and the savings you are getting and start again. So please don't never consider this as a one-shot exercise. It's something that you should have in your environment done periodically. So you are really able to get the benefits you expected when thinking about going into the cloud. So thank you, all of you, for your time. And I don't know if you have any questions or something you would like to ask us.
Thank you very much, Javier, for everything you have shared. Let's see if we have that or questions.
I'm seeing here a question, Noelia. So someone is asking about if there is any native solution for doing that. Okay. So I would say yes and no. So Microsoft has the Azure Advisor, which has some part of the recommendations within, but only the basic one. So licensing, like a reservation savings plan, or even some right sizing options, they are giving you that via a basic model. But right now there is no native functionality that is able to provide you all the savings all over your environment. So usually companies like us, like myCloudDoor, what we have done is develop some scripting and some tooling to enhance what Microsoft is providing us. So we are able to get further savings on top of that. And always you need to consider that there is some parts of that can be automated, but some parts that are more handcrafted and requires an expert consultant to review the workloads or provide some architecture optimizations.
Okay, Javier, I think we have another one.
Yes, so they are asking us about the capability of changing the licensings for reservations. Okay, so I told that on Microsoft has launched a new policy, and I think we can share with you after the webinar based on the reservations. So reservations can be exchanged for another reservations, and that provides you some flexibility. So imagine that you want to change the size of a VM, so you are able to change that reservations for one specific type of VM for another, and you don't need to cancel them. So the limit is not being applied. Before the 30th of June, there is no limitations on changing one reservation to another. Starting 1st of July, you are going to be able to make only one exchange for reservations. So, and what you can do is change one reserve instance into a savings plan. So I need to provide more information on that maybe after the webinar, because I need to share some documents so it's easier for you to understand that.
Okay, Javier, thank you so much. We don't have more questions, so we are going to finish the webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. In a few days, we will send you all the information of the webinar, and in case you have any questions, you can contact with Javier, who will help you to solve them. Thank you so much, and best regards.
Thank you very much.